sea buckthorn berry, aloe vera, and coconut water. This botanical beverage mix is designed to help nourish and support your body. Introducing Rivita Blu. Formulated by a pioneer in stem cell research, refreshing Rivita Blu contains 3 legendary plant-based ingredients. Blue-green algae, also known as AFA, a Phenomenon aqua, is found and extracted from Oregon's pristine Upper Klamath Lake. Blue-green algae is world-renowned as one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. Harvested from the Tibetan Plateau, sea buckthorn berry is packed with antioxidants and has been used for centuries in Chinese, Mongolian, and Tibetan traditional medicine for longevity and vibrant health. Grown in tropical climates around the globe, aloe vera has been used for almost 6,000 years for its wellness benefits. Taken daily, there is no question Rivita Blu will be the go-to product for your life and lifestyle. Rivita Blu, your best you.
ขอเสียงปรบมือให้กับRivita Bluกันหน่อยค่ะตอนนี้เราจะได้เวลาเจาะลึกถึงผลิตภัณฑ์ใหม่ของเราRivita Bluนะคะซึ่งผู้ที่จะมาแนะนำรายละเอียดต่างๆของผลิตภัณฑ์ใหม่นี้ถือเป็นผู้เชี่ยวชาญทางด้านสเต็มเซลล์โดยตรงเลยค่ะและปัจจุบันนั้นท่านก็ยังดำรงตำแหน่ง Jeunesse Scientific Advisory Board Stem Cell Specialist ด้วยนะคะของบริษัท Jeunesse Global นะคะถ้าหากว่าพร้อมแล้วนะคะขอเสียงปรบมือต้อนรับ Mr. Christian Drapeau
Thailand, which is almost a second home from me, so thanks so much for being here. So, talk to you about Rivita Blu. Lawan told me that really interested into getting more details about how Rivita Blu works. So I will go into detail. Time, don't go in. Thank you. So I will go into some of the details that oftentimes I don't go into, so please do not do Facebook Live. I would like to tell you, don't record it, but you will not listen, so I guess it's okay. So I will go into fairly technical and scientific information. I just want you to understand I'm doing this because I want you to see where the information is coming from. I want you to see with your own eyes what it is that Rivita Blu can do. If at times it is a little technical, just really look at it like a story, because it is the story of your own body. So Rivita Blu is all about stem cells. So to understand Rivita Blu, we need to understand stem cells. The reason why there is such a global interest worldwide about stem cells, it's because of the recognition by the scientific community that stem cells have enormous regenerative potential. So when scientists first discovered what stem cells can do in the body, you have all seen this in the media, the focus went onto harvesting stem cells from a source. You've heard about it. The umbilical cord, your fat tissue, the bone marrow, the blood, and then re-injecting them in the body. And with the idea of helping various tissues to regenerate and repair. But these stem cells that we harvest from the bone marrow, or from the blood, or from the fat tissues, they are there in your body as you're sitting here in this room. They have been there since the day you are born. So if they have such regenerative potential, then to me, a very important question is, what are they doing? They're not more effective because you take them out and you put them back in. So what is the natural role of stem cells in your body, and how can we tap into the regenerative potential of these stem cells every day of your life? When we understand all of this, it literally changes the way that we understand health and wellness, and I believe it is even called to change the way that we practice medicine. So the best start is to define what is a stem cell. To understand what is a stem cell, let's first talk about what is not a stem cell. All the cells of your body are called somatic cells. They're all the cells of your muscles, your bone, your skin, everything in your body. They do not multiply and they will never transform into another type of cell. At the other end of the spectrum, you have stem cells. Stem cells are actually nothing in your body. What I mean when I say nothing is that they do not play any role as stem cells. Their role is actually to transform into other types of cells in the body. If you go back 15, 20 years ago, the science that was taught in college, and unfortunately still taught today, a lot of what I'll be telling you today is still not available in college to med students. It is that novel. The understanding is that stem cells are the precursors to blood cells. Red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets, and that's it. The big discoveries that took place in the early 2000s is the discovery that stem cells have the ability, aside from becoming blood cells, to also become cells of various tissues. Let me show you one study that really exemplified this phenomenon in a beautiful way. So this is a study in which scientists took a double beaker. So we're talking about a small beaker inserted into a larger beaker, and at the bottom of this beaker, the top beaker here, we have a semi-permeable membrane, meaning that it allows the passage of molecule but prevents the passage of cells. At the top, they put stem cells, and at the bottom, they put a piece of damaged liver. And they observed these stem cells, and after 8 hours, they started to transform into liver cells. If you put a piece of heart, they start to transform into heart cells. If you put a piece of lung, they will start to transform into lung cell. But what this study specifically tells us, the reason why I'm choosing this study, because I could choose hundreds of studies to show this phenomenon, is that it tells us why we only discovered this today. If something like this is so obvious today in science, why is it that we have not seen that before? I mean, we have today a sophistication in science. We can go to Mars, we can film the brain, we can do so many things. And something that obvious, why is it that we discovered this only today? And this study gives us the answer, because if you take any one of these cells that are today liver cells, and you put them under the microscope, which is the traditional way of identifying a cell, you can tell that it's a liver cell today, but you cannot tell that yesterday it was a stem cell. The transformation is invisible. It has happened since the day you were born in your body, but it is invisible until the day that you can start to mark a cell and be able to follow the transformation. What I mean by this, it's like, for example, biologists have studied whales. You have whales in the deep oceans. Sometimes you have whales near the shoreline. You may think there are two different types of whales. But the day that you put a GPS on that whale, you discover that the same whale that is on the shoreline is the one that you can find thousands of kilometers just a few weeks later. So the GPS is the marker. The marker for a stem cell is a protein called green fluorescent protein. Discovered in the 1960s, it was developed over the next 40 years, became in 2008, it received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, and it's a protein that is spontaneously fluorescent. So given that it's a protein, you can derive the DNA that codes for this protein. You can take the DNA, inject it in the nucleus of a stem cell, which means that that stem cell, if it becomes a population of cells that become liver cells, you can tell they are liver cells, but you just put a black light and they start to glow, fluorescent, meaning that they were stem cells the day before. So it then becomes a very, very simple process. You irradiate mice, which kills all their stem cells. You inject fluorescent stem cells to repopulate the bone marrow. So now you have normal mice, but the stem cells in their bone marrow are green. You trigger an injury to a tissue, and you observe the process of tissue repair. If you do an injury to the muscle of the leg, 6 weeks later, it is completely repaired, but it is green, meaning that all these cells came from the bone marrow. You trigger a heart attack, the heart cells came from the bone marrow. You trigger a burn to the skin, the new skin comes from the bone marrow. Same thing in the kidney, same thing in the lung, same thing in the pancreas. I'll come back to that later. This is a pancreatic cell that is making insulin, a very normal cell, but it came from a stem cell from the bone marrow. So essentially, stem cells have the ability of becoming cells of every tissue. Now, when that started to be discovered in the early 2000s, it was a little bit like when a biologist, for the first time in our history, sees a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. Before that, you see butterflies, you see caterpillar, you have no idea that the butterflies come from the caterpillar until one biologist sees the transformation. You can have two conclusions or two reactions. First, you can say, that's a weird caterpillar. Or you can be a little bit daring and you can say, nature is organized, so maybe that means all butterflies come from caterpillar. So we thought, if stem cells can become liver cells, heart cells, and brain cells, these were the first observation in 2001, we thought, that means stem cells must be the repair system of the body. So we published an article in the journal Medical Hypotheses in which we proposed exactly that. Stem cells are your repair system. Just like you have an immune system, you have a repair system. So fast forward 18 years later, and here's what we know, documented with thousands of studies. Anytime you have an injury, anytime something is not functioning properly in your body, a heart attack, a broken bone, whatever, a cut, the affected area will send a signal to the bone marrow and will trigger the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. So stem cells will detach from the bone marrow environment and will get into the bloodstream. Within 3 to 5 days after the injury, the number of stem cells in circulation will increase between 3 to 10 times. Now, these stem cells don't know where to go. So how can they identify what is the place in the body that needs repair? So what happens is that on the second day and then the third day, the affected area where you have the injury will release locally specific compounds. So as stem cells circulate everywhere in the body, when they go through the fine blood vessels of the affected area where these molecules are being released, these molecules will touch the stem cells, and this will trigger the migration of stem cells out of the blood into the tissue. When they are in the tissue, stem cells will still see where the injury is. They will crawl to the site of the injury where they will multiply and become cells of that tissue. Isn't it beautiful? Yeah. This is your repair system. Every time there's something wrong in your body, that takes place. This is literally the discovery of a new system in your body. This system has many steps, as we just saw. The release of stem cells, their circulation, their migration in the tissue, their proliferation, and their differentiation. In science, you can only study the things for which you have a tool to make the observation. If the only thing you have is a microscope, you cannot study the stars. If all you have is a telescope, you cannot study bacteria. In science, we have molecules to trigger the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. That's all we have. The consequence of which is an increase in the number of stem cells in circulation. So many studies have looked at the relationship between health and the number of stem cells in circulation. And here are the conclusions. Is this too complex or it's good? Good? Good. Okay. First conclusion. Cells in circulation means that more stem cells are available to participate to the process of tissue repair. Let me make a very simple example. Two people with a broken bone, the one that has more stem cells will repair faster. It's that simple. You've all seen that in your life. You have a friend, you both have the same problem. You repair faster or you repair faster. It depends on the number of stem cells in circulation. Here's one study in which doctors took people who had a heart attack, counted the number of stem cells in their bloodstream, and then separated these people between the people who recovered faster and resumed an active life and people who did not recover very well or even passed away. The main difference is that people who did not do well had half the number of stem cells compared to the people who repaired better. Many other studies, just one example. Second conclusion, which comes from the first one. If the first conclusion is more stem cells in circulation means that you repair better, then it begs the question, if I have my person with a broken bone that is not repairing as fast, can I accelerate the healing by putting more stem cells in circulation? And the answer is yes. Let me show you a few examples. Before I go into this example, I want to really put what I'm talking about here in perspective. You go on the internet, you go in the media, you read articles on stem cells. Everywhere you read about the isolation of stem cells from a source, umbilical cord, your blood. What is becoming very popular right now is your own fat tissue stem cells. And then we re-inject these stem cells into your bloodstream. So what we do is increase the number of stem cells in circulation through an injection. What we're talking about here is an increase in the number of circulating stem cells just by releasing your own stem cells, which is a normal function of your body. So it is exactly the same thing. One is through an injection, the other one is through stimulating a natural process in your body. So here's a study in which scientists took mice, blocked the blood flow to the heart, so they triggered a heart attack. Then they let the animal recover, and they separated the animals in two groups. One group control, the other group in which they injected those compounds that trigger a significant release of stem cells from the bone marrow. So the only difference here is that the group to the right had more stem cells in circulation. When they looked at the heart, 1 month later, in the control group, you see scar tissue in the heart, no vessels, 17% survival, and severe heart problems. In the group that had more stem cells in circulation, you get renewal of the ventricular wall, new blood vessels tapping in the other ventricules, 73% survival, and almost normalized cardiovascular function. Think about it. In a world where there is nothing that we can do to recover from a heart attack, here's a study that shows you put more stem cells in circulation and your heart can repair. It's telling you that the body does have the ability of using these stem cells for tissue repair. Let's take another example, diabetes. To show that increasing the number of stem cells in circulation can help diabetes, I need to demonstrate two things. I need to show that, number one, stem cells can naturally leave the bone marrow, go to the pancreas, and becoming insulin-producing cells. If I can show that this is a natural process, the next step is to see if putting more stem cells in circulation can enhance this natural process to a point where it can have an effect on diabetes. So here's the first study. Genius study. So scientists took male mice in which they did a genetic manipulation. They coupled the gene for insulin to the gene for fluorescent protein. So here's what they did. On the day of the first conception of the cell, the first embryonic cell that will become the animal, to that cell, they coupled the gene of green fluorescent protein to the gene to insulin. So the animal develops. At the end, when you have the animal, any cell in that animal that will make insulin will be green. They irradiated female mice and they injected male stem cells into the female mice. So what do I have? I have female mice. All the cells in their body are double X. No cell with the Y chromosome, except the stem cells that came from the male donor. And these stem cells, if any one of them starts to make insulin, it will turn green. So it makes the whole process visible in a beautiful way. So look at that one cell. A few weeks later, these are cells isolated from the pancreas. A few weeks later, this cell is indeed transcribing the gene for insulin. The question is it making insulin? Using a marker, a red marker for insulin, that cell is indeed making insulin. And it's not making a lot, it's not a sluggish cell, overactive cell, it's not a Frankenstein cell, it's a very normal cell of the pancreas. At the age that we all are in this room, we don't have one cell in our pancreas that we're born with. That's what happened to all of them. And it is becoming from the bone marrow because it has the Y chromosome. So alone, that study is telling us, yes, the bone marrow will go naturally to the pancreas and make insulin-producing cells in the pancreas. So the next step is to see if enhancing this natural phenomenon by putting more stem cells in circulation can change the process of diabetes. To do this, scientists models. So to understand this, we simply need to think that if you try to find a diabetic mouse in nature, you will not find one. If you want to find a mouse that has Alzheimer's, that forgot what a cat is, you won't find it. Or a mouse with Parkinson's, they don't exist. You need to trigger the disease that resembles the human and then try to do something about it. So for diabetes, it's the injection of a toxin called streptozotocin. Forget the name, it's not relevant. 24 to 48 hours after the injection of streptozotocin, this part of the pancreas that produces insulin becomes this and no longer produces insulin. These animals are fully diabetic. They need insulin to survive. So to another group of mice, the same thing. Injection of the toxin plus compounds that trigger stem cell release. And you can see a partial recovery, but it is enough that these mice are no longer diabetic, they are normal. A similar study is done in humans with 14 people recently diagnosed for insulin-dependent diabetes. And to these 14 people, they did 2 rounds of release of their own cells. 13 of them were independent of insulin between 3 to 36 months. Think about it. Nothing we can do for insulin for the rest for the rest of your life. You need to buy insulin, inject yourself with insulin. And here we have studies showing up that your pancreas can regenerate and can repair. I can show similar data with stroke, spinal cord lesion, Parkinson, liver damage, lung problem, virtually every single aspect of human health. So the answer is yes. If you have a way of putting more stem cells in circulation, they can be used to help your body repair. All of this leads us to what I think is the most important of the message that I'm giving you today, is the contrary to the first two, meaning more stem cells in circulation is that you will do better, but the reverse is also true. Fewer stem cells in circulation exposes you to develop health problems. Let me develop this a little bit more because it's important to understand this one. Today, in our world, the way that we define disease formation is cellular loss. We don't talk about it this way, but if you think about it just a little, you lose cells in your heart, it's cardiomyopathy. You lose cells making insulin, diabetes. You lose cells making dopamine in the brain, it's Parkinson. You lose cells in your lung, it's emphysema. You lose cells in your thyroid gland, you have hypothyroidism. Every single degenerative problem is always the consequence of a loss of cell or cellular function. Our general understanding of aging and disease is that we are born, we mature, when we reach 20, 25 years of age, we reach peak health, and then after that we start to lose cells, and it's a slow decline until we lose too many cells in the pancreas and we start to develop diabetes, or in the brain we develop Parkinson, whatever the problem. So this is a little bit like saying you're born with a bank account, that's your genetics, and we tell you spend it wisely. But this is your lifestyle. But what stem cell research is telling us is that this is not how it works. Our body is constantly in the process of turnover. We lose cells every day, but we replace them by stem cells moving into the tissues and replacing the cells lost. So essentially it's more, you have a regular income, as long as it meets your regular expenses. When you are young, you have a lot of stem cells, so you repair very quickly. But as you age, your red marrow transforms into yellow marrow that does not make stem cells. So as you age, the number of stem cells in your bloodstream declines. On one day, when you do not meet expense in terms of cellular loss, and then the problem starts to develop in your life. They won't start right away. You'll just start to have a decrease in quality of life, and it will progress. We just call that aging. We just did not before that it was related to how many stem cells you have in your bloodstream. So if I take back my banking analogy, it's like to say, before I go there, what will make one person develop diabetes? Somebody else it's Parkinson, somebody else is emphysema, somebody else needs a new titanium knee. It's a whole series of factors. It's your genetics, your past injury, exposure to environmental toxin, exposure to physical stress, emotional stress, your ability to handle that stress. There's a whole series of factors that you all know very well for your health. You already know all of this, but it will indicate which is the tissue or the part of your body that is weaker, and that's where the problem will show up. It's a little bit, to take back our banking analogy, it's a little bit like saying we've got someone who cannot pay for their house, somebody else cannot pay for their car, somebody else cannot pay for their health, somebody else cannot pay for their education. So we have car problems, house problems, education problems, and health problems. But don't we have only one problem, money problem? It just shows up in different ways in different people because of their life circumstances. It's the same thing here. Depending on your body circumstances, cellular loss will lead to the expression of different problems. But the common denominator is a deficiency in stem cells. You don't have enough stem cells to replace the cells that are being lost. If that is true, there's one way to test for it. I can count the number of stem cells in the bloodstream of people who have developed various kinds of health problems and compare that to healthy people. And I should statistically see fewer stem cells in people who have developed problems. So here are a few of these studies. We proposed that study, this whole concept in 2008. I published it in the scientific literature in 2013. Since then, many of these studies have come out. Here's a study on diabetes, where stem cells were counted in the bloodstream of people with normal glucose tolerance, impaired fasting glucose, impaired glucose tolerance, and then diabetes. And you can see a straight relationship. As people progress more and more with the problem, they have fewer and fewer stem cells. Here's another one, kidney function. So you can see to the left, normal people, healthy people. The other three group of dots to the right, these are people with different stages of development of kidney disease. You can see that they have 1/3 to 1/4 the number of stem cells found in healthy people. If you plot kidney function with number of stem cells, you have a straight line. People with the better kidney function are simply the people with more stem cells in circulation. Here's another one, erectile dysfunction. To the right, to the left, control individuals. To the right, people who have complained of erectile problems. If you look at the average of these two groups, you can see that people who complained of erectile dysfunction have on average half the number of stem cells found in healthy people. You take all these people and you give them a test to establish their international index of erectile function, and you do a graph and you see a straight line. a direct relationship. More stem cells in circulation means better erectile function. And most of this has to do with vascular health. There is a strong relationship that has been established between how many stem cells you have in your bloodstream and your overall cardiovascular health. Here's one example. The main cardiovascular problem that we have in our society is simple hypertension. People with hypertension have roughly half the number of stem cells that we found in healthy people. Here's one with heart disease, ischemic heart disease, progression heart disease. When people have reached full development, you have half the number of stem cells found in healthy people. I can continue like this: Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, COPD, lung problem, rheumatoid arthritis. I don't have these slides, but the same thing has been seen with Alzheimer's, with lupus, many different kinds of aortic valve stenosis, mechanical problems that we would not expect also are linked to the number of stem cells in circulation. So the bottom line is very simple. Forget all the disease, forget all this medical jargon, if you want, around the message. The message at the end is very simple. More stem cells in your bloodstream means that you are more capable of repairing your body and staying healthy. Where this is going to call to change the way that we practice medicine is that today, the best of medicine is preventive medicine, is it not? It's like telling you the best way to be wealthy is to prevent poverty. You will never be wealthy if your strategy is to prevent poverty. You will simply not be poor. So we're trying to make you be healthy with a whole system that is designed to just prevent the problem. It is never going to give you optimal health until the day that we discover the body has a system for optimal health. It's your stem cells. Once we discover this for the first time in our history, it gives us a leverage to put more stem cells in circulation, to go beyond just not having the problem. Look at everyone here in the room. I am sure that there's something in your life that can be better. Maybe you could sleep better. You could have better memory. You could run a little faster. You could climb stairs without being out of breath. I mean, there's a lot of things here that we could do different. But we're okay with it because we grew up with this concept that until the day when you have a disease, you're not healthy. And you know that health is not black and white. There's a vast gray area between a disease and optimal health. 10 years ago, we climbed stairs 3 by 3. 5 years ago, 2 by 2. 2 years ago, 1 by 1. A year ago, 1 by 1 slowly. 6 months ago, 1 by 1 slowly, you stop to catch your breath in the stairs. Then you get a heart attack. You become a heart patient. But you've known for 2 decades that your heart is slowly going down because you don't perform as well. Put more stem cells in circulation, they will go and they will renew these tissues back to your body the ability that it can be. So how can we put more stem cells in circulation? That's where Rivita Blu comes into the picture. So all of this adventure for me started in 1994 when I was working with a rhinology called AFA, Afanisome Aqua, and we were trying to understand how this plant was working in the body because people were reporting all kinds of benefits. Let me share with you one, because to me it is really the one that was a turning point into this whole adventure on stem cells. It was I received a package with a photo album. There was a letter with it, and the lady was saying that when she was 12 years old, she was walking with a kerosene lamp, she tripped, and she burned herself in the face, chest, and arm, 3rd degree. She was heavily scarred. For 50 years, at age 60, she started to take this product. About a week later, the scars became inflamed, red, and itchy. People around her were telling her, stop taking the product. You see, it's not good for you. But for her, she felt that it was itchy, healing itchiness. So she kept taking the product. She took a picture of herself in the mirror every week, and she said, look at the photo album. And as you go through the photo album, you read the last picture, and there's no scars left. So I'm not telling you the product is good for scars, burn scars. What I'm telling you is that that one I could not deny. It's not a medical record, but how can I say it did not happen? What else have I ever seen in my life that did something like this? So it really pushed me to try to understand better, really, what this product was doing. So around 2000, the data started to come out that stem cells could be the repair system of the body. So we proposed this whole concept because in the back of my mind, the idea was, what if that plant actually stimulate the release of stem cells from the bone marrow? Stem cells would go in the skin of the lady with the scars, in the pancreas of the diabetic person, in the heart of the person with heart problem, in the brain of the person with Parkinson. We would get a broad variety of health benefits, and that's what we had and could not explain. So we went in the lab, we tested it, we developed an extract, and we found that indeed, an hour after consumption, we have a significant increase in the number of circulating stem cells. So to understand what that means, here's what we did, very simply. People arrive in the morning, they rest for about an hour. Then we take a blood sample, then we give them either AFA or the product that we want to test. And then an hour later, we take another blood sample, another hour later, another blood sample, and we pass the blood sample through a machine called the flow cytometer that counts all the stem cells. So the test that we do here is very well accepted in medicine. It's done in every main hospitals. So through that method, we can show that compared to placebo, the product triggers a release of stem cells from the bone marrow. After discovering this, publishing in the scientific literature, in my mind, it could not be that there was only one product in nature having an effect on stem cells. There had to be others. So I studied many, and one of the most interesting that I came across is sea buckthorn berry. In science, plants are named according to their physical characteristics. Like AFA before, Aphanizomen amphlosaqua means invisible flower of water, as an example. But Ipophae, Ipo means horse, Phae means light. It means shining horse. And it comes from Alexander the Great during his conquest in Western China. At one point, he abandoned a group of horses wounded in battles, and he just left them to die in a wild field of sea buckthorn. And when he came back a few weeks later, there was a herd of vibrant, healthy horses with a shiny coat. That's a sign of health for horses. So from there, not only it became called shining horse, but it integrated Chinese medicine, Tibetan medicine, Mongolian medicine, where it has been used for centuries, actually more than 2,000 years, for lung cancer, lung problem, cardiovascular problem, heart problems, diabetes, wound injuries, broken bones. So look at everything that we've talked about before. When I see this, to me it tells me it looks like we have something that has an effect on stem cells. So we developed an extract and we tested it using the same method, and we saw a significant release in the number of circulating stem cells. The last ingredient is a very unique extract of aloe. I won't have the time to go through all the story, but it's a subspecies of aloe that we discovered in Madagascar that has been used for centuries in a very unique way in Madagascar by the Malagasy people, and they use it for reversing hair color, back pain, liver problem, stomach problem, diabetes. You get the picture. So it's telling me it looks like we have stem cell effect. We tested it, we got a very, very good effect on stem cells. The problem is that the volume coming from Madagascar is not enough for a company like Jeunesse. So we looked at many, many, many different extracts of aloe. They're all too weak except one that is a unique extract. That's the one that we used in Rivita Blu, where you get a significant increase in the number of circulating stem cells. What I mean here by a significant increase in the number of circulating stem cells, I mean that after taking Rivita Blu, you will have an increase of anywhere between 4, 5 to 8 million new stem cells. Now do the math. I do not want to compare Rivita Blu to a stem cell treatment, but just think about it. You do a stem cell treatment where you receive 50 million stem cells for $10,000. You can get them many places. can get them here in Thailand. You take one sachet of Rivita Blu, you release 5 to 8 million. Do this 3 times a day, do this 2 days in a row. For a fraction of the cost, you've got the same repair potential in your body, and you can continue to do this for weeks and months. The potential on this, on not only repairing, but just allowing you to become the best that you can be, is amazing. So that's what Rivita Blu is. Rivita Blu is a blend of these ingredients that have all been documented to support the natural release of stem cells from the bone marrow. Okay, I have a few minutes left, so let me go quickly through this, because when I joined Jeunesse, to me, Dr. Antar, whom you probably have met before, she's in charge of product development, or she's a doctor for Jeunesse. So she told me, she's a good friend of mine, and she said, as you develop Rivita Blu, go and study the product that are already in the Jeunesse product line, because you will see that they work together very, very well. It's amazing how they are complementary. And when I studied this product, I realized it is very true. So let's look at the synergy that we have with Reserve, for example. When stem cells are released in the blood flow, there is one thing that can prevent them or suppress their ability to see what are the tissues that are in need of repair. It's oxidative stress and systemic inflammation. Anything you can do to reduce oxidative stress, you allow stem cells to better see where to go in the body. And that's one of the main things that Reserve will do to reduce oxidative stress. Another amazing synergy is with Luminous. To understand what Luminous does, we need to understand how the skin works. The skin has a layer of stem cells. They're called skin stem cells. They turn into skin cells, they move to the surface, they die, and they flake off. It's a constant renewal. You have a new skin every 2 to 4 weeks. Now, these stem cells in your skin are not immortal. Where do they come from? They come from the blood and the bone marrow. So it's bone marrow to the blood to your skin, renewal of the skin. It is a constant process. When you apply Luminous, it has peptides that will attract stem cells from the blood to the skin, support their proliferation, and support the natural renewal of the skin. Now, if you apply Luminous, but you now have 5 million more stem cells in your bloodstream to bring to the skin, you amplify the effect of the serum. So you've tried Luminous before, it didn't do what you wanted to do, try it again with Rivita Blu. Same thing AMPM. One stem cell can become a few thousand cells in your tissue. So when you release 5 million stem cells, you have a potential of 25 billion tissue cells. It's huge. It's a huge metabolic demand on the body. So you need all the vitamins, minerals that the body needs to function properly, to develop, and you want to protect the DNA. That's what AMPM does. And the last one, Reveal, and I can do synergy like this with virtually all the product, but just to be brief, Reveal is essentially Luminous for your scalp. In the skin of your scalp, aside from skin stem cells, you have air follicle stem cells that either disappear or become dormant, but the blueprint is in your scalp. If you apply peptides on your scalp while stem cells are in your bloodstream, you attract them from the blood to your scalp, and you give that opportunity. The product doesn't do it, your body does it. It gives the opportunity to refresh the scalp and start to renew your natural ability to grow hair. So I hope it was not too technical. That's what I wanted to share with you. This is really the story of your stem cells, the story of your natural ability to heal, repair, and be healthy, and a product that looks so benign. It's just a little sachet that you put in water. It tastes sweet. It looks like Kool-Aid. It looks like nothing. You have no idea of the power, the regenerative power that you have in your body. Rivita Blu simply taps into that power. So give it a try, see what it can do for you, and give me your stories. I would like to hear them. Thank you so much.
หลังจากที่เขาได้ทดลองใช้แล้วเป็นอย่างไรบ้างตอนนี้เรามีผู้ที่มีประสบการณ์จริงที่พร้อมที่จะแชร์ความประทับใจให้เราได้ฟังกันด้วยนะคะขอเสียงปรบมือต้อนรับคุณจักราพรรองพินิจการและคุณเอกชัยผู้คำค่ะสวัสดีค่ะเรียนเชิญเลยนะคะก็เป็นสองท่านที่ได้มีโอกาสได้ทดลองใช้มีประสบการณ์จริงนะคะของRivita Bluเป็นที่เรียบร้อยแล้วอยากให้ทั้งสองท่านนะคะได้แชร์ให้เราได้ฟังกันสักนิดหนึ่งนะคะเริ่มจากคุณจันทราพรแล้วกันว่าหลังจากที่ได้ใช้ได้ลองดื่มRivita Bluแล้วเนี่ยเป็นยังไงบ้าง
ได้ค่ะขออนุญาตแนะนำตัวนิดนึงค่ะหน่อยเป็นนักทางการแพทย์ชื่อจันทราพรหล่อเหมือนกันนะคะมันมีเหตุการณ์เมื่อประมาณไม่กี่เดือนที่ผ่านมานี่เองตอนที่เรามีโครงการเซนโปรเจกต์นะคะตอนมีโครงการเซนโปรเจกต์วันที่เราจะกำลังจะจัดงานสัมมนาเซนโปรเจกต์1 วันล่วงหน้าเนี่ยเลยเกิดอุบัติเหตุมีเหตุการณ์ที่กระดูกคอเคลื่อนนะคะกระดูกคอเคลื่อนแล้วกล้ามเนื้อที่ต้นคอและหัวไหล่บาดเจ็บขณะที่จะต้องใช้ยาแก้ปวดฉีดเข้าทางเส้นเลือดนะคะขยับไม่ได้อย่าว่าแต่เอี้ยวคอเลยนะคะแค่เหลือบตามองรถนั่งไปบนรถแล้วรถเขย่าเนี่ยก็เจ็บแบบน้ำตาจะไหลนะคะหลังจากนั้นก็คือเราก็ต้องไปทำงานหมอบอกว่าจะต้องใส่ซอฟต์คอลล่าเนี่ยทั้งเวลาตื่นและเวลาหลับเป็นเวลา3 สัปดาห์ห้ามถอดโดยเด็ดขาดนะคะ3 สัปดาห์คุณจะไม่มีทางทำอะไรได้เลยคุณต้องใส่ซอฟต์คอลล่านี้ไว้ตลอดเวลานะคะพอเรารู้ตัวว่าเราเจ็บแบบนี้สิ่งที่เกิดขึ้นคือพอเอิญมีไวตาบลูซึ่งไปได้มาจากยุโรปตอนนั้นก็รับประทานเลย2 ซองค่ะรับประทานมี2 ซองทุกวัน3 วันผ่านไปถอดปลอกคอได้
3 วันเอง
3 วัน
ที่เขาใส่3 อาทิตย์
แล้วเป็นพวกที่ชอบออกกำลังกายหลังจากไม่นานไปเล่นเทนนิสเรา
เหมือนทุกอย่างกลับมาปกติเลยโอ้โหสุดยอดจริงๆเลย
แค่3 วันสามารถถอดไอ้ตัวที่เขาบอกว่า3 สัปดาห์เนี่ยห้ามถอดโดยเด็ดขาดแล้วระยะเวลา 3-4 เดือนนี้คุณไม่สามารถเป็นไปได้เลยคุณจะไปออกกำลังกายได้ตามปกตินะคะคุณจะต้องคอยดูแลตัวเองเพราะการทำงานอักเสบแบบรุนแรงและกระดูกคอเคลื่อน
ค่ะนี่ก็เลยเป็นเรื่องราวความประทับใจ
ใช่
ที่ได้ยอดมากไปดูค่ะตั้งแต่นั้นมาเล่นขาดไม่ได้เลย
ใช่เลยค่ะเพราะอย่างที่บอกที่ดร.คริสเตียนเดโปได้พูดนะคะว่าจำนวนสเต็มเซลล์เพิ่มขึ้นในร่างกายทันที5-8 ล้านเซลล์โดยที่เราถ้าเป็นการรักษาแบบไม่อยากให้เจ็บหายเจ็บไวๆอยากจะฉีดเข้าไปแล้วได้60 ล้านแต่ตอนนี้เราทำแค่ซองเดียวเราได้5-8 ล้านสเต็มเซลล์ที่จำนวนเพิ่มขึ้นในกระแสเลือดของเราสุดยอด
ไม่มีอะไรจะเด็ดไปกว่านี้อีกแล้วนะคะที่ว่าเราดูสุดยอดจริงๆนะคะมาฟังประสบการณ์ของคุณเอกชัยกันบ้างดีกว่าคุณเอกชัยได้ทดลองดื่มได้ทดลองใช้แล้วเป็นยังไงบ้างคะ
ผมชื่อเอกชัยภูคำนะครับแต่ก่อนเนี่ยผมเป็นโปรแกรมเมอร์แล้วก็เปิดร้านคอมพิวเตอร์ในช่วงนั้นนะผมมาทำงานหนักมากแล้วก็ไม่มีเวลาพักผ่อนเลยเป็นช่วงระยะเวลายาวนะครับแล้วก็ผมเองผมบอกด้วยว่าผมก็เป็นภูมิแพ้มาก่อนด้วยเป็นตัวเองนะครับแล้วก็ทำให้เกิดอาการไซนัสอย่างรุนแรงมีกลิ่นเหม็นนะครับเวลาน้ำมูกออกในช่วงที่ผมเป็นในช่วงแรกเนี่ยผมได้ผ่าตัดไปแล้วรอบหนึ่งนะครับในปี2550ผ่าตัดไปแล้วแต่เขาก็หายดีนะครับหายดีแต่ผมก็กลับมาทำงานหนักอีกเหมือนเดิมครับไม่อยากพักผ่อนนี่ก็พอทำงานไปเนี่ยผมก็มาร่วมทำงานเพื่อเกี่ยวกับร้านคอมพิวเตอร์นะครับผมแล้วจากนั้นมันก็ทำงานหนักเช่นเดียวกันนะครับก็กลับมาเป็นอีกแต่คราวนี้ก็เป็นหนักขึ้นก็คือว่าจะเป็นในส่วนของช่องไซนัสด้านบนช่องไซนัสด้านบนเนี่ยก็มีกลิ่นเหม็นเน่าแล้วก็หนักแล้วก็แต่ว่าโดยสภาวะเศรษฐกิจที่ค่อนข้างแย่ในช่วงหลังๆมาก็ทำให้ผมเนี่ยได้ผันตัวเองไปทำอย่างอื่นด้วยนะครับแล้วก็คุยกับทางแฟนเราหาที่รักษาตัวเองอย่างนี้นะมันชื่อถูกกันหายังไงก็ไม่ว่าจะใช้แบบทางที่ผมคิดว่าน่าจะดีนะผมคงพูดรายละเอียดมากตรงนั้นไม่ได้เพราะว่ามันก็หลายเรื่องครับแล้วจากนั้นเนี่ยผมก็ได้มาเจอกับทางคือได้มาเจอแฟนเขาไปเจอในแลกรุ๊ปแล้วก็มาเจอที่ปรึกษาก็บอกกินอะไรเป็นหาไม่เจอไม่ถูกอะไรเลยไม่ถูกพี่เขาก็ไม่กล้าพูดก็กินผมแฟนลูกของโจยกิน ครับวันนี้จริงๆอย่างนั้นว่าปืนผมเป็นไซนัสที่หนักมากหนักมาตั้ง5 ปีแล้วครับผมก็ไม่คือจากครั้งแรกมาเนี่ยผมว่าปีอีกครั้งหนึ่ง5 ปีแต่ว่าผมไม่อยากไปผ่าตัดไงผมเป็นคนกลัวการผ่าตัด
ค่ะ
เพราะผมเคยผ่าตัดครั้งหนึ่งผมไม่อยากผ่าตัด
ถ้าใครได้ผ่าก็จะรู้นะกลัวนะ
กลัวครับถ้ากลัวการผ่าตัดทีนี้ที่ปรึกษากับทางพี่ลีที่ให้คำแนะนำผมลองดูนะลองดูตั้งดูนะลองดูตั้งดูนี่ทางพี่เก๋กับพี่นุชเนี่ยก็เลยแนะนำให้ผมนะลองดูแล้วก็ได้ไปหามาให้ผมไปหามาผมก็เลยลองทานดูได้ประมาณสักเกือบหมดของนะครับก็มันก็จะมีบางสิ่งบางอย่างเนี่ยออกมาแต่ผมไม่รู้ว่ามันคืออะไรนะครับแต่ว่ามันออกมาแต่ว่าเพราะว่ามันเป็นด้านบนก็หลุดมาจากทางช่องปากผมก็คายมันเป็นก้อนต่างๆแต่ผมไม่แน่ใจนะครับว่ามันคืออะไรผมเองก็ยังไม่เอาไปตรวจเลยก็ทิ้งไว้จนแห้งแล้วตอนนี้ยังเก็บเอาไว้ครับแต่ว่าหลังจากนั้นเนี่ยก็อาการดีขึ้นหลังจากที่ผมผ่านเจ้าหมูมาก็ยังไงก็คือว่าอะไรที่ผมก็ทำใจมากผมไม่ต้อง
ผ่าตัดไม่ต้องเจ็บตัวนะคะแล้ว2คือสามารถทานแล้วก็ให้ประสิทธิผลจริงดีขึ้นเลยอาการตอนนี้ก็ดีขึ้นแล้ว
ตอนนี้ดีขึ้นแล้วครับ
โอ้โหนี่เพราะรีไวท์บูเลย
ใช่ครับจมูกโล่งด้วยจากที่ผมไม่ค่อยโล่งมา5 ปี
ค่ะสุดยอดเอาไปเป็นอนาคตนะมันทรมานมากนะคะคุณเนี่ยต้องขอแสดงความยินดีนะคะไม่ต้องไปหาคุณหมอผ่าตัดแล้วนะคะแถมเจอยาดีรีไวท์บูนี่เองค่ะขอบคุณมากๆอาศัยความเป็นเจ้าเลยนะคะจากคุณณศราวและคุณเอกชัยนะคะขอบคุณค่ะขอให้สุขภาพแข็งแรงแบบนี้ตลอดไปนะคะและนี่ก็คือการแชร์ประสบการณ์จากผู้ที่มีโอกาสได้ใช้รีไวท์บลูจริงเห็นไหมคะว่ามันสุดยอดแล้วก็มหัศจรรย์จริงๆเลยนะคะเอาละค่ะลำดับต่อไปก็ถึงเวลาแห่งช่วงเวลาของเกียรติยศสำหรับนักธุรกิจเจเนสอีก1ช่วงนะคะซึ่งก็จะเป็นการมอบรางวัลถึง3 ตุ่มด้วยกันนั่นก็คือ1 Star Pacer Awards 2 Executive Maker Awards และ3 Star Maker Award นะคะในโอกาสนี้ค่ะ